Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another project in the Christmas project series. I would say a number, but I don't even know what number project this is at this point. But anyways, today's project is actually a really quick, easy, affordable, personalized gift that you can give to your friends and family. And this is very much an easy project for a beginner, and it's an etched personalized cutting board. So I have these small cutting boards that I was able to purchase at the dollar store, and they are glass, and they're perfect for just doing little, cheese trays for the holidays, and they make a nice gift if you give like a grocery store gift card or something. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. For my actual design, I'm going to be using a pre-designed image from the Silhouette online store. If you go into the online store, there are actually lots of pre-made monogram options that you can just purchase and use right away. You don't have to design anything. You can design something if you want, but I'm not going to be for this project. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and draw a circle that's going to represent my base of my cutting board. And I know that the actual cutting board is approximately 7 3/4 of an inch by 7 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to make this just a little bit smaller than that measurement. And this is going to make it easier for me to place my design later. And then I'm going to go ahead and go into my library and open up the monogram design that I want to use. So like I said before, there are several options that you can buy to cut out in the online store. I'm actually going to be using this split flourish, and I'm going to be using the top design. So I'm going to go ahead and select it, right click, and then go to ungroup. And then I'm going to select this portion here to delete because I'm not going to be using it. Now these two pieces I do need to use, and they are separated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and group these together so that I can move them as one unit and put them in the middle of my circle. Now you could proceed just like this, but I'm actually thinking at this point I need a wider gap in between. So I'm going to ungroup this. So I'm going to right click and ungroup and just select this bottom one and move it down just a couple of clicks of my keyboard so that my space is wider. This looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a box around the monogram portion of it, right click, and then go ahead and select group. And that way, when I move this, it'll move together. And when I go to center my text, it will center in relation to each other. So for the name I'm putting in the middle, it's going to be MacLeod, and I'm going to do it in all capital letters. And the font I'm going to use is called Marion. Now, I'm not sure if this font comes standard on all computers, but I'm pretty sure it's on most Apple computers as a standard font. I didn't download this font anywhere, but if I can find it, I will link it in the description box down below. So I've selected all of the text, so I can go ahead and change the font here to that Marion style I was referring to. And right away I can tell the letter spacing is too close together, so I'm going to go ahead and grab this slider on the right and just go up a little bit so that these letters are not touching. So that looks pretty good as is. So I can go ahead and drag this over. And I'm going to select it one more time and make it just a little bit bigger. Now to ensure that I have my name in the center of my design, I'm going to go ahead and select it and select the actual monogram part. And I'm going to go to the align window and then click align center so that I know that it's close to the center as possible. Now you can decide to make this off center if you want, or adjust it slightly so that you avoid overlap. So I'm actually going to end up coming down a little bit and over just because I see this part is going to cut in. It'll be slightly off center, but I don't think it's going to be enough for anyone to really notice it or hold it against me. So now that I have all this done, I can go ahead and get ready for cutting. Because I'm going to be etching the bottom of a glass cutting board, I need for the design to be backwards. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a box around everything so I can go ahead and select it. I'm going to go up to the top right-hand window or right-hand menu bar and select the mirror tool. I'm going to go ahead and mirror it to the right. And now I can delete this portion because I don't need this here. I only need this portion of the design. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of it and put it back on my cutting mat. Now I'm ready to go ahead and send this to my silhouette and etch it onto my cutting board. Here you can see I have my design all cut out, and I'm going to be weeding this in the reverse or backwards. So I'm going to be throwing away the parts that typically you would keep. So I'm going to throw away this outside piece because this is just scrap, this square that's in the outside of my circle. And I'm going to go through the design and remove all of the portions that were cut out so that I can use the extra vinyl as a stencil. For the most part, the weeding process actually goes quite quickly, but you will have to be careful when removing the letters that are small because you need to keep those interior pieces in place. Once I finished weeding out my design, I placed 3 strips of transfer paper on the back of my die cut. You can get this paper in larger sections, but this is what I had on hand, so I just overlapped the pieces of transfer tape in order to get one solid piece that I could use later to remove the design off the backer sheet. To place my design on the back of the cutting board, I laid it flat on my work surface and then took my cutting board and applied it down so that it was centered over the design. Once the cutting board was sat down, the feet were sticky enough so that I was able to pick up the cutting board and the vinyl and the transfer sheet stayed in place. And then I just used a little bit of pressure with my hands to transfer the design off of the backer sheet and onto the cutting board. Because I'm using this as a stencil, I could leave the portions that are on the feet in place, but I had a few air bubbles too close to the design, so I took a small pair of scissors and removed those pieces of vinyl that were near the feet, and that way I was able to ensure that I got a solid contact up against where the design met the stencil. To etch my design, I'm using Glass Etching Cream by Martha Stewart. This particular cream is an older variety. I believe the current one is white. This particular gel is brown. But using any brand of stencil cream, just cover up your design thoroughly and use a generous amount of the cream to cover the back of the design. The directions will tell you how long the stencil needs to sit, but my experience has been that the longer you let the etching cream remain on the design, the more detailed your etch is. I let my etching cream sit for about 30 minutes and then I rinsed it off in the sink wearing gloves using cold water, and now I can remove my stencil. You'll have to be careful when you're removing the detailed part of your stencil because it's very easy to use a tool like the pick and end up inadvertently scratching your design. So I carefully removed all the small pieces of the vinyl that I used for a stencil, and I cleaned the cutting board up, and here is a look at the final product. A link to all the supplies used will be in the description box down below. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.